There are just 48 hours to go until polls open in the election. Rishi Sunak and Keir Starmer are crisscrossing the country in their final pitch to voters. But it's fair to say the polls have not budged much in the contest. Most put Labour well ahead and on course for that supermajority, while the Tories are predicted to hemorrhage seats. One party also doing well in the polls is the Lib Dems, who could get as many as 70 seats. But just a few months ago, the Lib Dems were in crisis and its leader, Ed Davey, was facing calls to quit over the post office scandal. He was accused of failing to look into the Horizon scandal while in charge of the post office during the coalition years. Hundreds of sub-postmasters and mistresses were accused of fraud. Some were locked up and lost everything. I'll be speaking to Yvonne Tracey, who's standing against Ed Davey in the seat of Kingston and Surbiton. This is Never Mind The Ballots election countdown with me, Kate Ferguson. And do not forget to subscribe at youtube.com/@sunelection. Hello and welcome. With me in the studio is former Deputy Postmistress and independent candidate Yvonne Tracey. And also joining us in the studio is the Sun on Sunday's political correspondent Sophia Slay, who will be analysing the day's events with us. Yvonne, you're standing against Ed Davey and you're a former sub-postmistress. Do you want to just explain why you've decided to throw your hat into the ring of this election?
Yes, certainly. I think, like the rest of the country, when I watched the Post Office versus Mr Bates, I was absolutely horrified at how the postmasters and mistresses were treated. And I didn't realise until that programme that Ed Davey was actually the first minister that Mr Bates went to with his 555 signatures and said, look, please will you help us? We're not all suddenly turned into thieves. It must be something wrong with the Horizon system. And I was really angry that Sir Ed, well, first of all, he refused to meet him. And then when he did meet him, he chose to say that the system was absolutely fine. And if he'd have bothered to read those 555 statements, at the very least, he would have seen that they were all being lied to because they were all being told, you're the only one this happened to. So, you know, at the very least, wouldn't that make him think, well, why are they being lied to? You only lie to cover up a truth. So I'm really cross that he didn't ask the right questions, and this could have been solved in 2010. And
you obviously worked in a post office yourself, so is this personal for you?
Yes, it is, because, well, two things. I worked there for 30 years, and when I worked there before this happened, it had such a good reputation. Everybody trusted the British Post Office, one of the best in the world. And that reputation's gone now. It won't ever come back. So that makes me angry. But I'm also angry that people's lives were, well, sadly, in some cases, ended. You know, people even committed suicide. But at the very least, they had their business taken away, they lost their livelihoods, and it affected all their families. And I was so angry that this could have been stopped in 2010 if Sir Ed had done his due diligence. He was the Minister for the Post Office, for goodness sake.
We've seen a bit of Ed Davey in this campaign, doing a lot of stunts on the campaign trail. I'm just going to show you some of those clips and get your reaction to it. I think here he is. Is this him bungee jumping, which I think was yesterday? Ed in the skies there, bungee jumping, trying to get the headlines in the papers the next day. And here he is on a kind of, was it an inflatable donut on some kind of waterway in Britain. I mean, each day with Ed has been a different thing. And here he is. What is he doing? Okay, fine. Here he is at an obstacle course as well. So you can see he's like done a lot of stunts during this election campaign. Wheelbarrow race. The list goes on, really. What do you feel when you see those images?
I think, my goodness, he looks absolutely ridiculous, so undignified. And this is a man who potentially would like to be our Prime Minister. Thank goodness he won't. But, I mean, it's just ridiculous, isn't it? But I suppose, in a way, it's working. I think he's doing these stunts because he doesn't want to be quizzed on the Post Office. So he's trying to take the limelight away from the Post Office and do these sort of stunts. And it seems to be working because nobody's asking him about it.
Do you think he's sort of whitewashing his past by playing the fool?
Yeah, I'm thinking that if they concentrate on that, they won't ask me about the Post Office. And I say it seems to be working because he's not being quizzed about the Post Office, which he certainly should be. You know, this is this is it's so affected so many lives. Why are they not asking him about the post office? But he looks ridiculous, doesn't he?
Some polls put him on so many seats that he could even be the leader of the opposition. I know that sounds kind of fanciful, but some of the polls are saying that. Is he a fit and proper person to be leader of the opposition or leader of a major political party?
I don't think he is, because at the very least, he didn't help these people, which was really, really wrong. But, you know, we all make mistakes. So if he'd have said, when it all came out, do you know, I was wrong. I should have helped these people. I was wrong. He's never said he was wrong. All he said is, I'm sorry, I was lied to. Now, that's not good enough, because I say, the proof was in front of him if he'd bothered reading. They were the ones being lied to. It was in black and white in front of him. And he's never once admitted he was wrong not to do the due diligence that he should have done. He was the postal minister. I worked in New Malden Post Office. We heard rumours by then that all these people getting sacked and stealing, and a post office, hundreds, you know, it just didn't happen. You had the odd one now and again, but we were saying something's wrong. They can't all of a sudden. So if we thought it as ordinary postal workers, you know, he was in charge of the post office. He was the actual person who gave Paula Venables her job. So to say that he didn't know anything about it, quite frankly, is, well, beggars belief.
So you're running against Ed in South West London. Have you seen him out at a hustings, on the campaign trail?
Not seen him at all this election, nowhere at all, which is very unusual, because in the last election he was here, there and everywhere in New Malden, Kingston, Surbiton. Not seen him at all. He's not been at any hustings. I've not seen him locally. Nowhere, no hide nor hair of him. He's definitely gone to ground, I think, in the Kingston constituency.
That's odd, isn't it? Because when people run for election, they do all these local hustings at schools or community centres. Yeah. Have you tried to debate him locally? Has he been invited to the same things you have been?
Yes, he has, but he's always sent along probably there was the deputy leader of the council, the leader of the council, and so he's always sent someone along, but he's never actually come.
So he's not gone to any local hustings? It's a bit missing in action, you might say.
Well, it's very strange, let's say.
If he was in the room now, what would you say to him?
I would actually say, why could you not admit, these people want you to admit that you should have helped them, that you were wrong not to help them, not to just say, I was lied to. It was there in front of you. We were saying, each one of them was saying, it's only happened to us, and there was 555 people. Surely that must make you look. Why did you not look, and why is it so difficult for you to say, I was wrong, I should have helped these people? This is it, admit you're wrong.
So his apology, he obviously has apologised, said he was misled by the post office, but that's not good enough for you?
No, because he should say, I should have done more. He should apologise for not helping them, not to say he was lied to. I think he just didn't want to ask the awkward questions. It was all there by then. By 2010, all the information was there. If he'd have asked the right questions, we could have had this finished 14 years ago. Instead, it's dragged on for another 14 years since then. Well, it's still dragging on, isn't it? They still haven't got justice, a lot of them. And I think the people, the sub-postmasters and mistresses, want to see people held to account as well. It's not just a case of them getting compensation. They've had their lives ruined. They've had their livelihoods taken away. A local postmistress was put in prison when she was pregnant, Seema Mistra. She was fairly local, West Byfleet. She wants to see people held to account. And I know she's very cross when she sees Ed Davey doing his stunts, you know. She doesn't want to see that with what he's got laid at his door, and it is at his door.
How can we hold Ed Davey to account? What is it that you want to see from him beyond this fuller apology?
Well, as I say, I want him to admit that he didn't ask the right questions at the time, and I want him to say now he will do everything he can to put right his wrong and push through that the postmasters and mistresses get their compensation really quick. There's still some that haven't, and I want him to say that the people who did wrong are going to be brought to justice. I want him to try and make up for what he's done by pushing to bring these people to justice.
Before this election campaign was called, there were big questions about Ed's role as Lib Dem leader, and he was facing calls to quit over this scandal. Do you think he should quit after the election because of the questions he faces over the post office scandal?
Yes, I think he should quit, because I don't think you should choose who you help and who you don't help. You know, I say, it was there in front of him. It's no good saying he was lied to. The lies were in front of him, and he could have helped, he could have asked the right questions, and he didn't. So he chose to not rock the boat, in my opinion. It was much easier to go with the post office than help these ordinary little people. So I think we deserve MPs who help everyone, regardless of whether you're a big company or a little ordinary person asking for help. If you don't want to help everybody, don't do the job.
I wonder as well, some of the people caught up in this scandal, you've mentioned some names today, have any been in touch with you after you announced you were standing? Any given you messages either of support or just general messages?
Yeah, I've had messages of support. I've had a gentleman who said, thank you for doing this. We're very cross that Ed Davey didn't stick up for us. And I also had a lady who, she rang me and she said, I'm so glad you're doing this, because I lost my sub-post office. I lost my livelihood. It affected my children, didn't go to uni because I had no income. We had no home. So it affected their lives because they didn't get to uni and they were just about to go. I think she had twin boys. She said, I really want people like Sir Ed Davey held to account, because he didn't help us and he could have helped us. 14 years later, we're still waiting for help. So, yeah, I really don't think somebody like that deserves to be an MP. You help everyone.
And have you spoken to Ed directly at all, or have your paths crossed at all in this election campaign?
Not in the election, no. He's kept well out of the way.
It feels like he's been off doing these stunts nationally, but you say he's nowhere locally. So I wonder if what you make of that, the fact that he doesn't have time to do these local hustings.
I think it's pretty poor show, even if he only did one, really. And he's a busy man, I know, but I'm pretty... I mean, I know in the last general election he did. He did them locally, so I'm think it's pretty poor show that he seems to be hiding.
Sophia, do you think, just get your views on that, do you think Ed's in hiding locally, and are these stunts just an attempt to whitewash that past?
I have wondered if it's sort of an attempt at rehabilitating his image kind of thing. And all respect to you, Yvonne, it's great to see someone standing up for the little man and the little woman in politics. I think we need a little bit more of that. But yeah, it feels like Ed's kind of, used the word sort of whitewashing his image. He has faced some questions about the post office scandal. And his sort of stock response is, I wish I'd seen through the lies. And I think it's almost like someone saying, oh, well, I'm sorry you feel upset. It's a bit like that. It's a bit gaslighty. It's not you're apologising for what you've done. It's just you're apologising for how everyone else sort of feels about it.
Sophia, the other thing is, we were all speculating about Ed Davey's leadership and his future before this election, but he might walk away with more seats than the Lib Dems have had in years. Most people were expecting him to sort of hand over that leadership to someone else. Do you think he will if he gets, a few dozen seats?
I think he'll certainly stay on. I think, you see the energy that he's bouncing around the country with at the moment. I mean, the man's got ambition. He doesn't want to go anytime soon. He's full of energy. I mean, I think there are some sort of rising stars within the Liberal Democrat Party that would like to be leader one day as well. So perhaps, if they've got a big base soon, there might be rumblings, there might be leadership competitions before long. But he certainly wants to stay leader by the looks of it.
We've still obviously got that public inquiry. So there could be, he may have had a kind of good election campaign, but there could be questions for him coming out the other end in the autumn.
Exactly, yeah, he could face... I mean, this is not going away for him. He's faced questions about this. Whenever he's faced scrutiny or journalists or the public, he's faced questions about the post office scandal. It's not going anywhere. I mean, we see everyone you speak to and know, the anger, the families, the lives that have been destroyed by this scandal, he can't escape it.
Everyone, it must really cut through on the doorstep, because it's such a personal story, and we saw that ITV drama about it. It's something that really kind of... I guess people were appalled at and brought it to life, didn't it?
Yes, absolutely. When I've been on the doorstep and I've said that I'm standing under the banner of justice for sub-postmasters, and every single person has said, my goodness, thank you, because that programme was really shocking. And I think they were shocked at how these people were treated. And still, I say, so nearly 24 years and it's still going on. And, they are angry, very angry. I think the public are because I think they're fed up, the public, of being, it's not just the post office, is it? We've got the blood scandal, we've got Windrush, I think we're fed up of being treated as the little person who I don't know. I think we need more honest politicians. I think we need politicians who are there to help people rather than feather their own cap.
You talked there about kind of that thing of, like, I guess, the establishment versus the little person. Is that how you feel, a kind of David versus Goliath battle?
Yeah, I do now. I really do. I think it's worse now than it's ever been, and I think it's time for people to say this is enough. You know, we need people that are going to be honest and stand up for us, and I think people are really have had enough now.
Sophia, do you think the Lib Dems are going to do as well as some of these polls predict?
I think they'll definitely do well. How well, I think, is up for debate still. I think, you know, historically you can always see when Labour does well, the Liberal Democrats do well as well. They tend to do well together at the same time. So I think, you know, the writing is on the wall.
Fantastic. Well, now, stay with me. After this, we've got Rishi Sunak bowling out and Keir Starmer behind enemy lines. Now, it's time for our moments of the day. And yesterday, Rishi Sunak has been hitting a cricket ball. But polls predict he's the one that's going to be bowled out on Thursday. Tories have doubled down on their scare tactics. But I think we can see Rishi now hitting that cricket ball.
No? Yeah. Nick, you want to go to cricket?
Never heard of it, mate.
That's
the relaxing part of my day so far.
So, Sophia, there he is. We know Rishi Sunak's a big cricket fan, but I mean, those polls predict that it's him that's going to be bowled out on Thursday. How do you think this kind of much talked about supermajority is going to happen?
Look, it looks like Labour will win a big majority. Whether it's going to be super or not, I think, remains to be seen. I think this is kind of a novel thing that we're talking about. I mean, it's a defensive Tory tactic. Let's talk about supermajority, scare people off voting for Labour. That's where this sort of word has come from. I think it was Grant Shapps that coined it the other week. So it's kind of trying to put people off voting because they're going to end up with this big beast.
And we've seen those scare tactics, haven't we? They're talking a lot about tax, about Labour not being able to be trusted on defence, on borders. Are we kind of being scared into the polling stations by the Tories?
I think that's exactly what's happening. Let's scare the voters, warn them off Labour, and you can see, you know, Rishi Sunak's been in his heartlands. He's been in Tory heartlands trying to defend, you know, places with big majorities. You can just see what the strategy is now.
Whereas I think Keir Starmer's been out parking his tanks on Tory lawns out in kind of the shires, these leafy, once rock solid seats. Here he is in Oxfordshire. Is that a barn? It looks like he's in. I mean, true blue territory. Well, I mean, yeah, there you go, hay bales and everything. Is Keir Starmer just taunting the Tories now?
I think so. I mean, they look a tad out of place, don't they? I mean, the Labour Party is quite London-centric, isn't it? I don't think they've got many farmers in their ranks.
But, I mean, what does this tell us about where Labour's going to win, potentially, in the election campaign?
I mean, it shows that they're confident of winning in areas that they've maybe never, ever won before, or not for a long, long time.
Yvonne, I mean, we talk about this supermajority. You're standing as an independent. Are you worried about Labour walking away with, I don't know, 250-seat majority? What does that mean for kind of the little guy, I guess?
Yeah, yes, it is a worry, I think. Yeah, it's a funny time at the moment, isn't it? It is a funny time, but well, we'll soon see, won't we, Thursday?
So, Sophia, I mean, what will our politics look like if Labour have that big a majority, right? Like, do they just get to do carte blanche, do what they want? Is Keir going to be more radical in number 10 than he is in opposition?
He'll certainly have the weight to be able to be more radical. And I think that the issue I sort of have with that, if it does come true, is scrutiny. You know, the sort of the bodies that scrutinise everyone in Parliament will be, led by Labour MPs, you know, who know each other, who are friends with each other.
Those select committees.
Yeah.
Well, one new line of attack the Tories are making on Keir is this notion that he's sleepy, because he said that he's going to clock off at 6 p.m. on a Friday to spend some time with his family, as long as no big crisis is going on. Is that fair, or is that, whisper it, lazy?
I think that's all right. Personally, I don't have an issue with that. I think, you know, yes, if he becomes Prime Minister, I can imagine if his pager, or whatever the modern version is, goes off on a Friday night.
Pager, very 90s,
yeah,
Sophia.
whatever the modern version is, and, you know, Houthis are sort of bombing our ships in the Red Sea. I can imagine Keir Starmer would be on duty for that kind of thing. You know, David Cameron did it. He was very clear about family time was really important for him. So I don't have that much of an issue with it, personally.
Maybe voters will be more sympathetic than Tory HQ is.
Yes, yeah.
Well, Sophia, and Yvonne, thank you so much for joining me in the studio today. This was Never Mind The Ballots Election Countdown. Remember to subscribe to us on youtube.com/@sunelection to watch more.